Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the McKinney number T4A3786, 4.5, 4.5, 26D. It says TMS there. Template machine screws is what that stands for. TMS means that what that means is that you are going to require, the way that this has come packaged is with a machine screw that's going to go into a hole that's been drilled and tapped. That's what template machine TMS stands for. It's a typical industry abbreviation. In fact, the industry has scores of abbreviations. I have a manual here from DHI, and if you need to specify hardware, you would very much benefit by attending class in DHI. This is my opinion. Yeah, abbreviations and symbols. There's an entire publication on this. And yeah, you're certainly gonna find TMS. TMS, to template with machine screws. What's interesting though is sometimes I'll use TMS with a hinge manufacturer and they will wonder if I'm asking for Torx screws. I don't know, but nonetheless, TMS, that's what it means. So what is this hinge? Let's move on. This is what the hinge is. This is a very typical and common hinge in the sense that it's the right size for common hollow metal doors. Wood doors as well, I suppose. It's the common type of hinge, meaning that it's full mortise. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaves here and here that when they're brought parallel, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame, like you see there. The part number tells us that it's a heavyweight hinge, however, and that it's actually made of steel. So the T4A3786 conspires to mean a lot of different things. In no particular order, it does mean it's full mortise, that it's made of steel, that it's heavyweight. On a 4.5 inch hinge, that'll be 180 thousandths leaf thickness is what it'll be. It means it's ball bearing, 4.5 by 4.5. A telltale sign of it being heavyweight is that there are 4 bearing packets. Standard weight hinges will only have 2 bearing packets, ball bearing packets. If you see a hinge from afar, it's got 4, then you know it's a heavyweight. Yeah, the hinge leaf measures 0.183, so that's certainly within tolerance for what this hinge would be. And it does mean it's made of steel. I'm looking for my magnet. It is here somewhere. Anyway, this will be made of steel. It would be better if the factory used the BHMA code 652, which tells me satin chrome over steel, except they're using the older system, the US system. They're calling it 2060 or US 2060. Okay. What I like about the McKinney hinges, they work nicely right out of the box. Some hinges that you get, you kind of got to work them in, or they need weight or a load on one leaf for them to really move. But I like the McKinney product line because it just works smoothly, and their fit and finish is quite exceptional as well. There's their logo. They have a UL logo on there. That's actually atypical for hinge manufacturers to put a UL stamp on a hinge that's not a spring hinge or not some other type of hanging device that might require visual identification. It's not necessary to have a label on a hinge like this and use it on a fire door, because it's understood that it's a listed product, that this hinge has indeed been tested with the factory. But them putting that UL label on there certainly isn't a bad thing. and it would probably it would insulate them in the future in terms of perhaps there being a change in the standard and therefore the code NFPA 80 that requires UL stamping on hinges. The story I think about often about having a stamp on hardware, and in particular hinges, and in this case spring hinges. A client called and says, "Where's my order?" Well, the lead time is 4 weeks. That's what we're doing. Well, I can't wait 4 weeks. I've got a door that I've got to get swinging. I've got an inspection. Well, he had ordered some Asian import spring hinges that were to be a copy of a domestic manufacturer of hinges that's been in business since the 19th century. And I said, an inspection, do you mean a fire door inspection? Turns out yes. And I says, well, it's a good thing these hinges haven't shipped because they're not approved for use on a fire door. Specifically spring hinges is what it was. Spring hinges must be stamped UL. And he was begrudgingly grateful in the conversation that we were able to cancel those code deficient hinges and then immediately enter and immediately ship him hinges that would work, even though of course they were far more expensive, which was the original logic to begin with. So where are you going to use this hinge? Well, let's talk about that right now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now this hinge, being a 4.5 inch tall hinge, and it being heavyweight, tells me that it's going to be on a door that's heavier than average because of the heavyweight nature compared to it being a standard weight hinge that's 0.134 thick when it's 4.5 tall. Pretty much that's what it tells me. A little heavier than average door, maybe a 16 gauge hollow metal door, or 3.0 or 2.10 or 2.8, something 3 foot or narrower. Or maybe it's a standard 18 gauge door that has more volume happening on the opening. It's a busier door. And you'll see that a heavyweight hinge will be used in both of those instances. Now, if you have a door that's even heavier than average and a notch above that, or wider than 3 foot, you're going to start to see hinges that will be taller than 4.5, 5 inch. Be very typical. 5 by 4.5 or 5 by 4 would be typical, or 5 by 5 as well. But the height is what we're talking about. That difference in the additional ½ inch from 4.5 to 5 is about a 20% increase in efficiency of the hinge doing the work. And that top hinge is known to do about 70% of carrying the weight of the door. That one hinge alone. That bottom hinge is just there for the party. Doesn't do much work at all. The middle hinge doesn't as well. So the top hinge is doing the majority of the work. So if you have a heavier, wider, higher frequency volume, you're going to want to consider not only heavyweight, but a taller hinge as well. Why it's 4.5 inch wide, hard to say. Could be just, that's what was specified. Someone needs to do the analysis on how wide of a hinge that needs to be. And we can analyze that right now. Basically, you want to determine how wide of a hinge you need every time that you specify a hinge, just like you need to determine the height of the hinge you need. Just because it's 4.5 tall doesn't mean 4.5 is the best width. In fact, it might be wrong. In many cases, it's not the best choice or considered best practice. So the way that you determine that is the formula. The formula is door thickness minus hinge backset. So you know your door thickness. The backset is the amount of the door that's not been removed, or the part of the door that the hinge doesn't cover in terms of the edge. Hinge door thickness minus backset, multiply that by 2. 1.75 inch minus 1/4 inch times 2 is 3 inch. You then add your inset, which is the dimension from the face of the frame to the face of the door. If it's typical hollow metal, that's going to be a very small number, certainly less than 1/8 of an inch, and it's going to be basically a 1/16. So you're going to add the inset. So now we're at 3 1/16. Let's just say 3 1/8, which it won't be. It'll be less. And then you add your clearance. Well, in this application, it's a hollow metal frame wrapping a partition wall, and there's no casing, there's no chair rail, there's no thick baseboard or plinth blocks or some unusual wall condition that requires you to pull that vertical axis of pivoting further out so that you can get the door out and around what would be in there. So clearance in this example is 0. So the answer is 4.5 tall, and then you go to the next commercially available width, and in this case it would be 4 inch. 3 and an eighth, 3 and a 16th. The next size you can get, you can't get 4.5 by 3.5. 4.5 by 4 would be the right size, and that's what should be supplied on that opening. You want that vertical axis of pivoting tucked as close to the face of the door as possible. It makes the hinge more effective at doing its job. Plus, the crown of my watch. That's why. Have you ever walked down a narrow hall and cracked the crown of your watch on projecting hardware? I have. I had a nice new watch and I nicked it on a hinge barrel, or it was a strikelet. I forget what it was. So you don't want hardware hanging out. You want it tucked back in as close as possible at all times. This is going to include these. They say TMS. It does come with all machine screws, and this did come with half wood screws. So the point of that is, when you're ordering this material, absolutely specify what screws that you want. This application is metal door, metal frame, so I specified TMS, which is why the label says that. But the fact that there are wood screws in there shouldn't really be there. They shouldn't have been included at all. I specifically asked for my fastener type. Technically, if I didn't, I would be wrong in specifying the hardware. It goes to the job site and somebody sees wood screws and, oh, I'll use those. Those seem stronger. No, they're wrong. It's templated. It's a templated machine screw application. It's a plate that's been drilled and tapped for machine screws. But the bottom line is, our job is to not allow the installer to make such an error. Well, if you didn't want me to use it, why are they in the box? They shouldn't be in the box, is the short answer. Obviously, most people are going to know don't use a wood screw on a steel door. But there's a right way to do it, and that's the right way to do it. Let's switch to the screen view, and let's take a closer look at all of the supporting information. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, here's the item that we are looking at. Let's take a look at the extended description of this hinge. McKinney full mortise 5-knuckle heavyweight, 4.5 square corner. It's not bright chrome. Okay, I've got that fixed. Satin chrome. Recommended for use on high frequency and or heavy wood or metal doors in schools, hospitals, other public buildings where heavy traffic is experienced. Sure. Same information here. The size, 1224 by 1/2 inch machine screws, which are flat undercut head. Number 12 by 1.25 inch threaded to the head wood screws are included. An ANSI reference, a document that specifies a standard that this hinge is compliant with. 5-knuckle, we talked about that. 8 holes, it's a template pattern. 180,000 square corner base material steel. Satin chrome, sold as each, not per box. Sold as each. When you buy one, we'll ship you one. Let's look at some images that we have. There's the label on this box. There's the hinge. Just different perspectives on this. Admittedly, I don't know what W stands for. The backside of the hinge. They do a nice job at finishing the backside. You do see a little bit of the hinge when the door is closed. Your fastener package. Catalog. This is a link to the entire catalog. McKinney, I don't... this is kind of out of place here, so we're going to skip over that. Cross-reference is... okay. So... continuous hinges... McKinney hinges. Okay, so let's just use it. T4A3786. So T4A3786 comes up. Aha! Tells us that I know that that's a Bomber part number, that's a Hager part number, and that's a Stanley part number. That's handy. Bomber, Hager, and Stanley. Unfortunately, you probably won't be needing to cross-reference Bomber as they've ceased operation. Unfortunately. I know that McKinney or Assa Abloy had some type of working relationship with Bomber. Okay, so cross-reference, that's handy. Brochure, it's probably a cut sheet. It's not. This is just a marketing document showing different hanging devices, obviously by McKinney. All right. I was expecting to see a cut sheet there, so what we'll do is we'll open up that catalog, and by the time you're seeing this, there will be a cut sheet added T4A3786. Here's our cut sheet for just this hinge. Okay, so a lot of this is going to be just duplicate information, so I won't just read this again. Important to know that the T4A3386 would be a non-ferrous base material, so either stainless or brass. So obviously your 630, your 629, your 605, your 613, those types of finishes would be non-ferrous. Of course, brass base material you can't use on a fire door, and it would not, certainly would not have a UL stamp. T4A3786 is your steel based. If you know that you're doing a beveled edge, it would be better to have a T4A4386 rather than a square edge door. The bend on that hinge leaf does technically change a little bit when you have a beveled edge door. You can see, you can in your mind's eye kind of imagine if this door was beveled, the hinge leaf, when it becomes parallel, would actually not fit on the door very well because it needs to be bent this way a little bit, that 3 degree in fact. That is the right way to do it. The hinge will not sit perfectly flat in that sort of regard, so don't forget about beveled edge doors. 8x6, 8x8, those are different animals. They have 6 bearings because they're so much taller, meaning the size of the hinge of the T4A3786 is available here. The available sizes. 4.5x4, 4.5, 4.5, 5x 4.5, etc. You get the concept. Options that can be done on this hinge. NRP. T4B is a so I'm actually not sure what the difference is, so I'm going to contact the factory and ask. Let's find out right now. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. May I ask you a question on a T4A3786?
Yep, go ahead.
How does that visually differ than a T4B3786?
Well, let's look here. There it is. Okay. I'm just going down through everything here for you. Let's see. There's that. Well, I'm not finding the information I need here. Normally I do just Rockwood, but we do McKinney now also, so I'm trying to get brought up to speed a little bit. Tell you what, let me get you over to Doug. He just got off the phone. He's our head McKinney
awesome
rep, and he'll probably know better than me here. So let me get you over to him.
Thank you.
Oh, you know what? He just actually ended up getting on the phone here. Hang on one second. Let's see if I can grab Brittany here quick and see if she can walk me through this. Let me just put you on a brief hold.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, you still there?
I am.
All right, so visual difference, there is no visual difference. The difference between the A and the B is A is an oil impregnated hinge, and the B is a ball bearing hinge. But they look exactly the same.
Right on. Yeah, okay. I understand. So in the A version, there aren't actually small ball bearings. There are probably synthetic pieces of material that slide against each other would be my guess.
Correct.
Yeah,
with an oil, with the oil in there. Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Awesome. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Hey, no problem whatsoever, and have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, so we just heard exactly what the difference is. I had forgotten that. As far as I understand, the oil impregnated is a increased ability of being a lower coefficient of friction. So it's an upgrade is the bottom line, even though they look the same. Now, if it was me, I wouldn't be ordering T4A or T4B. I'd be ordering TCA, the concealed bearing. It's a far cleaner look on the hinge. You don't see any of this business here. You just see the seams between the knuckles. A much cleaner look on the TCA, although it costs more. So NRP is a security feature, non-removable. If you have any door that swings out, interior or exterior, they ought to be non-removable pin. Can do radius corners. That's not, it's quite unusual, but it's not unheard of.
He just got off the phone. He's our head McKinney.
I have done radius corner heavyweight hinges. Hospital tips, that's where they're going to take this entire knuckle and grind it down.
Hang on one second.
So that you can't
Brittany here quick and see if she can walk me through this. Let me just put you on a brief hold.
hook something to the top of it. You can't leave something hooked to that. Ball tip, that's obviously a decorative feature along with steeple tip. SSF, safety stud feature. Let's take a look at what SSF is. There it is. It's basically a piece of metal that's protruding from the back of the hinge into the reinforcement. I'm sorry, I've got that backwards. This is a piece of metal that's projecting into the hinge and will rest inside of the hole that's been prepped in the opposite leaf, so that when the door is closed, even if you were to drive the pin out, you still shouldn't be able to separate those leaves. That's what that's for. They do have, I'm sure they have a reverse function of that as well.
Okay, you still there?
I am.
Yeah, it's right here.
All
the
right,
PSF. That's the pin sitting off the back of a leaf into a hole that you prep in the door and frame.
Oil impregnated hinge.
That's not uncommon. I've seen those in the past.
Ball bearing hinge.
So back to our T4A
but
cut
they look
sheets.
exactly the same.
Right.
Electrified
okay,
or sorry, raised barrel.
So
raised barrel
in the A version, there aren't actually
has its own set of requirements.
ball
Square
bearings.
edge,
There are
beveled
probably
edge doors. A raised barrel hinge
pieces
is
of
used
material that slide against
when
each other would be my guess.
Correct. With
Yeah,
an oil. With the oil in there. Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Awesome. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Hey, no problem whatsoever. And have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
an application like this, where the door is deeply inset. And your choice really is to have the hinge knuckle come out here. Well, that's just not very practical a lot of the time. Your other option is to take your hinge knuckle and kick it out like this. That's called raised barrel. Where you move that vertical axis of pivoting out this way. Okay, that's a raised barrel hinge. That's not uncommon to see at all. SP3, let's go to SP3 just to take a look at a raised barrel hinge. There we go. You do have to know if it's a square edge or a beveled edge door, because again, here's a great image of that. That hinge leaf is bent differently than it is between the two applications. Same condition with that T4A3786, I think is what it was. I think that's what it may have been. Yeah, T4A4386. Other options: power transfer, monitoring as well with the concealed circuit, magnetic monitoring. You're going to know if that hinge leaf is closed or not with that monitoring. Okay. Now, there's a link below this video, as seen here, to the manufacturer's page. And from here, you can pull up not only all of the McKinney products we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link back to that full-line catalog, prior versions of the catalog, and then a McKinney catalog from not only 2003, but from 1929 as well. Encyclopedic documents as they pertain to McKinney will be put on this page. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So a really nice hinge. McKinney is obviously a full solution provider of hanging devices. They have things other than hinges. They're going to do some double acting hinges as well. They have some pivots, and they're fully integrated into the Asa Abloy umbrella of other companies: Sargent, Yale, Corbin, Russwin, Rockwood you had just heard earlier, Aero, Medico, Asa, and Abloy, and on and on and on and on. So anyway, any questions on the T4A3786 hinge or any other McKinney product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.